Anthony Joshua absolutely annihilated Francis Ngannou in their super-hyped match. Ngannou's second professional boxing match ended violently and conclusively, with AJ scoring 3 knockdowns en route to a second-round TKO in Saudi Arabia. It was a tough night at the office for the heavy-handed knockout artist making the transition from MMA's top ranks. But despite being on the wrong end of that mauling, the always confident Ngannou assured fans and media that we have not seen the last of him in the boxing ring. He's down, but certainly not out of the pugilistic game just yet. So what could be next for the sport's most coveted free agent? Is a return to MMA imminent after that brutal KO loss? Or does Ngannou intend to run it back in boxing and gain some much-needed experience against other opposition? Before we jump into what could be next in Ngannou, let's quickly recap how things unfolded against the former unified heavyweight boxing champion, Anthony Joshua. Heading into their bout in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia, most expected a feeling-out process between the former UFC king's thunderous power and AJ's more refined technical skill set. Joshua was a substantial favorite, but the hype around Ngannou's one-punch KO ability from MMA made him a live underdog. From the opening bell, however, it was clear Ngannou was no match against Joshua's speed, footwork, and fundamentals. AJ came out composed and in control, utilizing a stinging jab and lateral movement to keep the bulky Ngannou tentative and struggling to find his range. Midway through the first round, a slick multi-punch combination from Joshua put the powerful Cameroonian down for the first time in his boxing career. Though he beat the count, it set an ominous tone for what was to come. The second round followed a similar pattern, with Joshua's sharpness and experience nullifying any potential offense from the flat-footed Ngannou. With about a minute remaining, a picturesque straight right hand instantly crumpled the former UFC champ in a sickening heap. Referee Michael Bates mercifully waved it off at the 149 mark as Ngannou lay unconscious on the canvas. In a criminally one-sided showcase, the former Olympic gold medalist reaffirmed his elite pedigree in the sweet science with a clinic-level dismantling of MMA's most vaunted heavyweight striker. So while the knockout loss itself was emphatic and potentially cast doubt over Ngannou's long-term boxing future, his words in the aftermath provided a window into where he could end up pursuing his combat sports ambitions next. In the immediate aftermath of that brutal KO defeat, Ngannou refused to make any definitive statements about what his next move entailed, be it boxing, MMA, or something else entirely. Speaking at the post-fight press conference, the 36-year-old Cameroonian stated, "I think I'm going to go home, get some rest, process what just happened. I'll process it and then see what is the next step." That is an understandable stance, given the likely lingering mental and physical cobwebs from being emphatically slept by one of boxing's living legends. However, Ngannou did make one promise to calm any worries that this one-sided defeat could potentially end his foray into the boxing world before it ever really got started. He continued, "Maybe MMA, but you can be sure that I'm not done here. Boxing? Absolutely not." Those assurances should come as welcome relief for fans intrigued by the prospect of Ngannou continuing to improve as a boxer. While he's still awaiting his highly anticipated PFL Smart Cage debut after signing a lucrative multi-year deal, the former UFC champ clearly has his sights set on gaining more professional experience inside the boxing ring before any return to MMA. For the ultra-confident Ngannou, walking away from boxing after just 2 outings, even one as disastrous as the Joshua mauling, has clearly never been an option. He sees bigger things and greater challenges ahead for himself in this arena. So if Francis Ngannou does indeed intend to continue chasing his boxing dreams following this humbling setback against Joshua, who or what could potentially make sense as his next move? One option could involve finally getting him in the ring with someone from his own MMA background making the switch to boxing alongside him. There have been widespread rumors of Jake Paul targeting a boxing match against Ngannou, especially in the wake of the Joshua loss, potentially putting the Predator's value within a more reasonable striking range of Paul's price demands. While far from a shutout on paper, Paul is largely an unknown commodity at the elite levels of the boxing world. Just like Ngannou himself was before the Joshua showcase, provided the bitter contract disputes between the two sides could somehow be resolved. A Ngannou versus Paul event would generate tremendous mainstream appeal while giving each fighter a relatively even playing field against a smaller sample size of boxing pedigree. There's also always the option for Ngannou to aim for another incremental test against a more established pro boxer. However, given the disastrous results against Joshua, taking a minor step back in competition to face a lower-tier regional opponent may make more sense for building confidence before ultimately targeting a higher-profile lucrative matchup. Any way you cut it, there appear to be multiple viable pathways for Ngannou's continued maturation in boxing, all depending on how quickly he and his team aim to raise the difficulty. Rushing into elite competition against another highly technical boxer may not be the wisest move after the Joshua massacre. Naturally, whenever discussing where Francis Ngannou plans to take his next combat sport steps, the logical starting point is his lucrative new long-term deal with the Professional Fighters League. The PFL Smart Cage provides Ngannou with a revolutionary new platform and rule set to re-establish his dominance in MMA after an acrimonious split with the UFC, saw him depart as reigning heavyweight champion. And despite leaving the door open for continued boxing forays, the Cameroonian slugger did reveal to media after the Joshua fight that an MMA return under the PFL banner remains a distinct possibility in 2024. So while Ngannou's immediate future appears squarely focused on gaining more experience and exposure in the boxing ring, it certainly sounds like he has not forgotten about the organization paying him an 8-figure annual salary over the coming years. He has substantial financial incentives to eventually make good on returning to MMA. But any long-term plans are likely to be overshadowed in the short term by the allure of continuing to test himself in boxing against the level of opposition warranted after enduring such a chastening loss against Anthony Joshua. The competitive fire inside Ngannou almost demands he get another crack at either avenging the Joshua defeat or proving he's more prepared the next time out when facing someone with an elite boxing pedigree. So should Ngannou indeed knock out a few more boxing obligations in 2024, a PFL MMA debut versus the heavyweight King Ferreira or Bader seems a potentially epic clash to make that organizational debut later in the year. And there's no doubt that type of massive fight introduction would draw record-setting viewership and coverage from across the combat sports world. The options for Ngannou seem to be open-ended in that regard. Focus first on gaining momentum redemption and traction in boxing, or prioritize cashing in his PFL contract with an MMA smash hit upon arrival. No matter which path he ultimately favors, it's quite clear from Francis Ngannou's words and the wide range of unique opportunities available to him. This Joshua knockout defeat was merely a small setback on the way to something much bigger still to come. What did you make of Ngannou's comments and future outlook for the remainder of 2024 and beyond? Do you think he's destined for redemption and potential boxing glory ahead? Or will the MMA PFL money ultimately prove too irresistible to pass up in favor of the squared circle? Drop a comment with your analysis and let's keep the discussion raging. And be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more premium combat sports video coverage just like this coming soon.